let's get started.
Living my best life. Living my best life. This house is now a litany. The things I thought I'd never be. Man who has opinions on and out of me, among other things. I used to think I'd missed the road, the crushing fame and sold out shows. Now I'm singing head, shoulders, knees and toes like I've forgotten them. But I'm alive, yeah. Baby, I'm thriving. Oh yeah, I'm living my best life. Wake up when the sunrise does not look a thing like thought that it would. But I've been getting my steps in, and I sleep with my best friend. It's the best that it has been in a long time. I'm living my best life. Yeah. Living my best life. Sometimes it sucks to tell the truth. I took it hard like people do, but I'm learning how to eat fruit that is in season. Never thought I'd be a grown-ass man. But you know what they say, best laid plans. Now I'm holding on to my daughter's hand. I've got a reason to be alive. Yeah, baby, I'm thriving. Yeah, yeah. I'm living my best life. Wake up when the sunrise does not look a thing like I thought that it would. But I've been getting my steps in, and I sleep with my best friend. It's the best that it has been in a long time. I'm living my best life. Yeah. Living my best life. Come on. I'm living my best life, best that I can. No worry or stress time, 'cause I'm done with it. I'm as light as can be. I'm as fresh as a breeze, right where I wanna be. So you need to find me. I'll be living my best life, waking up with the sunrise, looking at things like what the actual hell. But I've been counting my blessings, and I sleep with my best friend. It's the best that it has been in a long time. It's the best that it has been in a long time. I'm living my best life. Yeah. Oh, I'm living my best life. Living my best life. Living my best life.
Come on, let's give it up for this band this morning. Man, some good music right there. Hey, that's what we want to do today. We want to help you live your best life this year. Happy 2025. Anybody excited? It's 2025. Officially here. Man, so exciting. My name's Curt. If we haven't had a chance to meet, it's great to have you with us here at Cross Point. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. We also have a whole bunch of people join us online. Let's make some noise for those in the online spaces today. So excited to have you join us live today. Excited that you have chosen to start your year with us here at Cross Point. And I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at, for me, one of the more inspiring figures from the Old Testament that has just had huge influence on me, and I think will really help us shape our 2025. Now, if this is your first time here at Cross Point, you may have heard a bit about our reputation here. There's a lot of ways that people see us here at Cross Point. If you've been around here for a while, you know that we like to start new things. We often are kind of first to market on new things. We try unconventional things to help people find their way to God. And there's just a number of uncanny number of visions that we have actually brought to fruition over the years. Things like Spread Some Cheer initiative. Did you guys know how big of an impact you made last month? Spread some cheer. Let's give it up for that. 140 families that got served. We've been doing this for like 16 years with a meal at Christmas that otherwise wouldn't have had one. Families that had gifts that otherwise wouldn't have gifts around their trees. And those are just things that we had a vision for, and it's actually become a reality, and it continues to happen. We do things like making church relevant and relatable, just trying to make things practical. It's why we do game day around here. Anybody excited about game day coming up? Game day 2025. Man, it is coming. It's right around the corner, our next big spiritual holiday. And that's just a way for us to have fun and learn at the same time. We have something called the Village Project Africa that we partner with, where we provide school supplies for students on the other side of the world, because we know that one of the ways that you get anyone really, but especially students, up and out of poverty is through education. It's one of the big levers. And so we do something called a backpack initiative, which is coming back here shortly. You'll have the chance to actually help those students get to new places. Making Crosspoint accessible to people in person like you are today, those online that are joining us. Did you realize over 35,000 people watched or viewed Crosspoint last year through our online spaces, all of our platforms? Is that not amazing? Man, so cool. And we just think that church isn't just in the building, but you can tune in from wherever you are across our city, state, nation, and world. And so these are just, I go on and on and on about some of the ways that we've had visions for things and actually brought them about. But today is not about Crosspoint. Those are just some of the ways that we've made that happen here in our history. Today, I want to talk about how do you bring vision to a reality in your personal life? Because it's the same process. It doesn't matter if it's organizationally or if it's something we do personally. And so we're going to look at a guy by the name of Nehemiah. We're going to start Nehemiah chapter 1. And Nehemiah is a Jewish guy in the Old Testament, and his town, known as Jerusalem, his homeland, is taken over by the Persians. They basically come in, they take over, and a lot of the Jews are scattered. There's a few left in Jerusalem, but they're scattered, and the Persians come in and they pillage the temple and take all the riches and all sorts of things. Well, Nehemiah is one of the guys who was scattered, and he ends up working for a new king by the name of King Artaxerxes, who is one of the greatest and most brutal rulers of the Old Testament, of ancient days. And Nehemiah kind of rises to the top of the food chain with this new king, and he becomes the cupbearer to the king. Now, the cupbearer was an important role because you had to be smart, you had to be discerning, you had to have good judgment, because basically he would taste the wine before it went to the king to make sure the king didn't get poisoned. So, I mean, you get one shot at your job to fail, right? Like, you miss one bad wine that, has poison and you're out. So, like, you really have to be discerning. So, Nehemiah is smart. He's made his way up to this trusting position with the king, and something happens with Nehemiah that changes the trajectory of his life. He gets a vision. And this vision that he has actually becomes a reality. It's not just some daydream. Oh my gosh, it'd be amazing if this happened. It actually comes to reality. And so today, as we look at this story and we talk about the new year, I'm going to use a couple terms synonymously today. I'm going to use the terms goals, visions, resolutions. These are all things we perhaps do at the start of a new year. I know there's unique nuances with each of these words. I'm going to kind of use them synonymously today. And so let's talk New Year's resolutions for a moment, all right? Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you made a New Year's resolution, right? Because those of you that did, you're going to be like, oh, that's me. I did right away. I'm in. And those that didn't, for those of you that did, you're going to look at the people that aren't raising their hands. You're going to be like, yeah, they're a loser. They don't have any goals in their life, right? I don't know if you do that. Do you do that? Are you mean like that? I do that sometimes. I look around like, man, people around me, they aren't high achievers. And so we're not going to do that. But part of the reason that we're not going to do that is that's one of the reasons I don't make resolutions. All right? I do always have something I'm working on, though, some kind of goal, some kind of vision. And it's one thing to have a resolution. It's another thing to actually have something that is getting done. And very few of us actually have resolutions that come to a place where they are actually in motion and getting done. In fact, Time magazine recently said by some estimates, as many as 80% of people fail to keep their New Year's resolutions by February. In fact, next Friday is Quitter's Day. Do you realize that? Next Friday is the day that it says most people are going to fall off the train on their resolutions, and very few people make it. In fact, 8% of people actually stick with their resolutions the entire year. And so, we have these visions at times of things we want to do, but the reality is it rarely happens. And so one of my goals for 2025 is I want to help you experience more and more of God. I want you to have more and more experience of awareness of God and experience with him and his plans for your life. And so before we jump into Nehemiah right here, I want to actually show you a conversation that somebody sent me this week. It was a really cool conversation on a podcast. The podcast is titled The Secret to Success. And this kind of sets the context for that, of how we can actually take steps to connect more and experience more of God. So take a look at this right here.
Tim Tebow told me that blew my mind. So I just spoke Ignite conference. So it was me, Rich, and Tebow. And so, Tebow a cool dude. Like, he a real Christian. So he just out there, whatever. So he was like, E, what you gonna be talking about? I was like, for real? He was like, no, for real. What you about to talk about? Yeah. And I was like, yo, I'm about to talk about the playbook and how you got to follow the playbook. He was like, oh, okay, give me more. So I get, Ma, you studying. I'm studying football. I don't play like that, but I'm studying this. I love football to life. He was like, oh, you know the playbook ain't about just the playbook, don't you? And I was like, what you mean by that? He was like, oh, no. When you're a great football player, the playbook is about the relationship you build with the coach. He said you don't have a relationship with the playbook, E. Right. The relationship was with the coach. Yep. The coach just happens to give you his thoughts on paper. He said, so you always knew who was going to shine in the game or not, or who was going to be dope because of the relationship they had with the coach. So people who didn't like the playbook, they also didn't have a relationship with the coach. Yeah. So they also didn't get play time.
The playbook wasn't designed for them.
He said, bro, the playbook is about you having an intimate relationship with the coach. It's the coach's thoughts in writing. He said, so the closer you are with the coach, the closer you are with the playbook. He said, and it's so deep because if you don't know the coach and you only know the playbook, sometimes you'll run the plays that you need, the coach wouldn't really want you to run in those circumstances. He said, see, when we're in practice, it ain't a real circumstance, so coach give you these plays. He said, but then once you get in the game, you got to be so close to coach that this ain't the play based on what the scheme they running. This ain't what coach really want me to run. Because I know coach's mind and coach's heart. So this is what he want me to run. Right. So I'm about to run this play right here because this is what coach really want. But coach ain't out here, so he can't run it. So me and coach are one. So when I get out here, I'm going to run coach's play. So when he said, bruh, God don't care nothing about you reading the Bible. It has nothing to do with the Bible. The Bible is just what he wrote, but you got to establish a relationship with him. And then once you establish it with him, this is what he preached about. He said it's a difference between people who go to church and Christians. He said people go to church, I don't really know what they be on. They be like trying to get the word for what they can get from it. He said, bro, when you really love the coach, you trying to figure out what coach want, and you want to give coach what coach want.
Man, that's good, right? That's good right there. Yeah, that's so good. And that's my goal, that you would actually grow in connection with the coach. If God is our coach, how do we experience more and more of him? I also discovered in that if I ever do a podcast, I want the sound effect guy on my podcast. The guy that goes, ooh, like that's actually pretty cool in a podcast right there. So how do you bring your vision to reality? I hope to inspire us today to actually help us see that God has something that he wants you and your life to be about this year. How do we bring that thing that God is putting on our heart, that we're feeling, into motion, into reality? Well, I want to take a look at Nehemiah. He has a vision, and if you made a resolution, a goal, if you have some kind of objective you're working on this year, maybe you don't. Maybe you'll have one by the end of our time today, or one will begin to percolate. Maybe you're not going to have it until February 1st. Maybe you won't have one until June 1st, or you'll start it October 1st. It's not about having to be at the start of the year. It's just that as we get a sense of here's what God wants me to be about in this next season, we have to do what Nehemiah does to help that come into fruition. So let's read it. Nehemiah chapter 1, beginning with verse 3. It says, the remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are destroyed by fire. As soon as I heard these words, this is Nehemiah speaking, he says, I sat down and I wept and I mourned for days, and I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. And so Nehemiah has been told by someone from Jerusalem, hey, dude, guess what? The walls of your city of origin, man, they're down. Like they are down. The gates are burned down. And when Nehemiah hears this, he's wrecked. He's actually just distraught. It says he wept and he mourned. Now, that would be like today for us here in Indianapolis area to hear if somebody said, hey, guess what? Indianapolis Motor Speedway burned to the ground overnight. Lucas Oil Stadium, Gainsbridge Fieldhouse, burned to the ground. You'd be like, oh, no, that's horrible. This is like some of the identity of our city right here. We would feel that. We're like, this is not right. We need to do something about this. This would be bad news. Now, it's not just that the walls are down and so, the city can't defend itself any longer. No, that's certainly the case, but this is about the identity of the city. The identity of Jerusalem is actually broken up and in disarray. And Nehemiah, he loses it. And he gets a vision. And so four things that we're gonna look at today, and then we're gonna extrapolate these out over the next 4 weeks. 4 things about vision today. Number 1, vision is seen. Vision is seen. Now, vision is not always 20/20, all right? It doesn't mean you're seeing it perfectly or if you have a clear picture of it. When I talk about seeing something, I'm talking about you seeing something in your mind that other people aren't seeing. All right, loads and loads of people would have walked by these walls that were broken down, didn't do anything about it, didn't feel like they needed to do anything about it. Nehemiah was the only one who started a building fund campaign. He was the only one that began to rebuild the walls. That was Nehemiah. And I think one of the reasons that perhaps some of us is, we sense at times that we're lacking a zip in life, or we're lacking joy, or we're struggling to feel this X factor, like God is just working in unique ways in our lives. I think sometimes it's because we're lacking vision. We're not seeing the things that we're uniquely here to be about. In fact, Proverbs 29:18 actually says, where there is no vision, people perish. If you don't have something you're working for, if you don't have something that we're working toward, if we don't have something that you feel like, okay, I am on assignment from God on this thing, we perish. I mean, it's just like I owe, so it's off to work I go, or we're left with swipe right and swipe left, or we're left with medicating ourselves in front of a screen. And because there's no vision, there's nothing that I'm supposed to be about. There's no thing that my life is making a difference on. There's no wall that I'm building or hill that I'm taking. This is why God says, hey, when there is no vision, people perish. They actually just kind of dissipate. They lose this sense of like, gosh, I'm here for a purpose. Now, you may or may not have made a resolution, right? Totally cool. You don't have to make resolutions. I don't make resolutions. But I'm telling you right now, if you don't have some goal you're working toward, or you don't have some sense of, hey, here's the thing that I'm moving toward, here's the vision that I'm going toward, then you're probably in a space where you're spiritually dying, where you're just like going through life trying to simply survive. If you see something in your mind, something that you want, something perhaps nobody else sees, maybe it's something that nobody else is paying attention to, but you go, man, this is important. I need to be about this. This is what happens with Nehemiah. He actually sees this. So the first thing is the vision is seen. Second thing, vision is feeling it. Vision is feeling it. Notice Nehemiah, it said that he wept, he got down on his knees and he mourned and he wept. He felt it deep within his spirit. He lost it. Now, what this means that when it comes to vision or God stirring something in our life, if you're not feeling it, it's probably not a vision. All right? If you're not feeling it, it could be that something's brought to your awareness and you're like, oh, that'd be a really good thing to come about right there. It'd be good if it happened. But when I say feel it, I'm talking about feeling it within the bandwidth of your emotions. All right? Now some of you come into this space every single week and you're like, man, every time I'm here, I cry. I'm so glad we have dim lights in this space. That's part of why we have dim lights. You're like, I get so emotional in this space. I used to not cry a lot. Every now and then I cry. I find myself crying more and more. In fact, if you're here at Christmas Eve at Crosspoint, I shared a bit about how I've had these moments where I've just really been moved over the last year and I've been paying attention to them more and more. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. Maybe that's just my old age that I get more emotional more frequently. But I've learned to pay attention to these moments. And when I say within my emotional bandwidth, whenever I feel an emotion in a moment, I actually assume that might be God doing something right there. I've just taken the posture to say, if I feel something like that, if I feel something stirring in me at that level, perhaps that's God wanting me to see something. Now, I've had to grow in this, all right? This wasn't something that I naturally knew how to do. In fact, for a long time, I used to just kind of suppress or stuff down my emotions. I used to, kind of jam them down. I don't know if that's because I was raised in a family where we weren't really coached real well on how to navigate and regulate our emotions. I remember in a discipleship course I had early in my, my faith, maybe I was 17, 18, and it talked about we have feelings and we have facts, and you can't really rely on feelings. Faith is very fact-based, and you can only believe in facts. And so I just kind of learned I became weary of emotions. I had a college class once that was all about facts, and we might feel God's a certain way, but what's the facts? Which is very true. A feeling is not a fact. I've just discovered through the years that as I've tried to really grow my self-awareness and others' awareness, and I've tried to grow my leadership and specifically my emotional quotient, something I've really had to work on, like how do I pay attention to what I'm feeling? I've learned that emotions can actually be really, really helpful to leaders. Feelings are important. In fact, we're going to talk a bit later about, I want to help you get into a daily habit with Scripture so that as you feel certain things, you actually can interpret, okay, how does that align with what God perhaps might be wanting to say to me? And so all this to say, when we see Nehemiah right here, his feelings are motivating him. All right? His feelings are pushing him. So why is it that we get to next week or the rest of this month, and for many of us, the resolutions, the goals that we perhaps have, why do we not see those through into February, into the rest of the year? Well, let's think about this in the frame of maybe something we've all done before. But we probably all made a resolution or a goal to say, hey, I want to get healthy this year. I want to experience, some weight loss. I want to eat healthier. All of us have probably done that at one point or another. I want to work out. Why is it we set goals like that? Well, for some of us, we're not feeling it. It's just the first of the year, and we're like, oh, I should probably choose something, and I've heard it's a good thing or a good time of year to get healthy, or it's a good time of year to get on the treadmill a few more times during the week, which is all rational and good. There's nothing wrong with that. You may just not be feeling it within your spirit, all right? And when you're not feeling it, you don't have this kind of drive of a feeling behind it, oftentimes that's where we end up failing. Now, I want to show you something fascinating. According to one poll, these are the top 2025 resolutions here that are happening across our country in the United States. The first one here is fascinating, to save more money. 21% of Americans said they made a goal or resolution to save more money. Look at the next three. They all have to do with getting healthier, more exercise, losing weight, and then we get down to more time with family and friends. But look at the bottom one down here. 43% of people say that they are not making a resolution this year. And again, totally cool. You don't have to make a resolution. God never said, thou shalt make a resolutioneth. He never said that, all right? Not in the Scripture anywhere, all right? It's just, this is what we do this time of year. But what I would say is the 43% of people right there that perhaps aren't making a resolution probably don't have any visions for their lives either all year long. And they, or you, perhaps if that's you, I'm telling you, if you are just in this habit of gliding by, of kind of eking by, saying, I'm not going to really have something that really drives me through this year, maybe you're even in what's called a functional freeze response, where you're dealing with some trauma and some things that cause you to not be able to move forward on some initiatives. Whatever the reason might be, you're not experiencing a zest. You don't have a drive, a purpose of, hey, I'm feeling an exhilaration as I push forward after this thing that I'm here for. And so we have to say, okay, what is the emotion then that drives us? What's the emotion that makes that happen for us? For me, I can tell you, one of the things I do every week, I work out regularly. I have multiple times a week that I do work out when it comes to health. And there's really two reasons that I do that. The first reason is, in fact, because I've got hundreds of eyeballs on me every single week. In fact, right now in the room, tuning in online, hundreds of eyeballs. And so I come from a family that's got some obesity in our history. And so I don't want to look like a slob up here. Right? I don't want to look like that guy. And so I've even asked myself, I even said, if I wasn't in front of people every week, would I do some of those things to look the way that I do or try to stay in shape? I don't know if I would, honestly. That drives me. Knowing that this is happening, I'm like, that drives me. So I don't know if I would take care of myself this way. The second reason that I work out the way that I do is because I like to do physical things. I like to do physical labor. I like to do physical projects. I like to do outdoor sports where I need my body to perform. And so, in fact, this last week, my son and I, he came home from college, and his car was having a problem. It wouldn't start. And so we found out that it needed some pretty heavy mechanical work. There's actually a starter that needed to be replaced. The problem is in his car, I'm like, I've never seen a starter in a place like this. I mean, the labor was incredibly intensive, and we didn't know we wanted to put that kind of money into that car. So we decided to take that project on ourselves. And so, we were jacking the car up because we wanted to get underneath it to kind of see if we could get to the starter from underneath it. And as we jacked it up, I had this big planks of wood, and I just shoved them under there, and then I jumped back up, and my son looks at me and he goes, push-ups are working, aren't they? And I'm like, I don't know if he's making fun of me or not right there. And I'm like, yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I'm glad you noticed. I'm glad that you saw that because I work out, I was actually able to do something right there that was needed in that moment. And I realized that's the second reason I work out right there. Because I don't want to get to a moment where I'm naked and I am not prepared. I don't want to be in a moment where I need to physically perform and I'm not capable of doing that. And there's actually emotion attached to that. And it's the emotion of embarrassment. It's the emotion of, not wanting to look unprepared and feeling like, oh, I'm really embarrassed by that. That actually drives me. I want to be equipped when it's go time. That's actually an emotion. You got to figure out what is the emotion that's behind whatever it is God's calling you to do. And you have to just say, okay, is this something God wants me to do? And then you have to tap into the emotion that will motivate you to get that done. In fact, one author put it this way. In fact, if you don't hear anything else this morning, this is like gold right here. He said this. He said, the essential difference between emotion and reason is that emotion leads to action while reason leads to conclusions. So emotion leads to action, which is what happens with Nehemiah in this story, and reason, it leads to conclusions. A number of years ago, early days of Crosspoint, we were meeting across the street in one of the schools, and one particular Sunday, there was a pastor that showed up at our church, and he apparently was one of the parents of somebody who was attending Crosspoint at the time, and he came up and told me a story after service, and he was dressed in a suit, and which was totally cool, kind of out of the norm for our culture, but he told me he's pastor of this small church in this small town in Indiana, and which is totally cool. We need churches of all shapes and sizes, and he looked at me after service, and he said, I think I could do what you do. I'm like, really? and I looked at him, and I wasn't convinced when he said that, but I wanted to know where he was going with this. So I said, hey, tell me more. Like, what do you mean by that? He said, well, I just, I'm in my little church. He said, if I'm telling you, if my wife would just let me wear a T-shirt on Sundays instead of wearing a suit, I could do what you do. And I kind of chuckled and tried to keep my chuckle down. And I just thought to myself, well, the first problem is that your wife's telling you what you can wear on weekends. Like, maybe that's your problem right there. Now, I actually, most of what I wear goes in front of my wives and my daughters. I'm like, hey, how's this look? I want to look good. They're my fashion judges, all right? So I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying, hey, if you want to wear a T-shirt, wear a T-shirt. But at the end of the day, he was just very rational. He was like, well, rational. I mean, if I could just dress down and wear cool jeans and a T-shirt, I could probably be just like you. And maybe he could. But see, for me, I thought, no, if you think that's what drives this place, listen, some of the things that we've navigated here at Crosspoint over the last year, some of the things that we've fought for, that I've led the charge on to help us navigate and create a future for Crosspoint, I'm telling you, none of that happens by rational thinking. That happens because there's a feeling, there's an emotion, a burden for people that don't, in our community, have a place to perhaps experience God. That perhaps if Crosspoint's not here, where's that place where they might be able to walk in? Even though we have churches all around our community, we're here for a very unique purpose, and it was driven by that emotion. See, emotion is what drives us to get things done. What is it for you that you feel deeply, like you feel deeply about? There's probably something in that God has for you, and he wants you to have a vision for. Nehemiah, he was that guy. Bunch of people walked by the walls. They didn't have the feels for what Nehemiah felt. I mean, he saw the wall, and he felt burdened. He mourned. He got on his knees, and he began to weep. And he was moved. In fact, it's probably why we're talking about him today. It's why he made the Old Testament. It's why his story is in here. And I just want you to know that story can be your story. In fact, I think God has an amazing future for every single one of us. But it starts with you having a vision, and that vision oftentimes starts with what you're feeling. Are you feeling it? Let's keep going. Verse 10. It says, Nehemiah says, they are your servants and your people whom you have redeemed by great power and by your strong hand. O Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight to fear your name, and give success to your servant today and grant him mercy in the sight of this man. All right, Nehemiah, his emotion is being informed by God right here. All right, this is what I'm wanting you to see, that this is all about God, all right? Nehemiah, he's feeling a burden. He's to go do something, but it's really about what God has in front of him. God's stirring this thing in him, all right? He's saying, God, this is your project, all right? He's saying, God, I want to be your guy. I want to be the one to help solve this. And I recognize that as a people, we failed at times. We've missed the mark. We've sinned. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on in this passage right here. A spiritual depth, a whole different layers of depth going on in what Nehemiah says right here. This passage isn't about somebody who says, hey, I'm a really good project management specialist. That's in my background, and I'm a type A personality. I can get the job done. No, this is about something he's feeling, and he's saying, God, this is not just about me. It's actually something that you are doing. And so Nehemiah actually spends 4 months, think about this, 4 months processing this, all right, before he actually goes and begins anything. And during those 4 months, he's praying about it, he's crock-potting it, he's letting it marinate, all right? Perhaps you're feeling something today. Maybe you have some vision, or maybe you didn't have a vision before you came in here today. Maybe something's stirring in you right now. Let me just tell you, do not, and just hear me clearly on this, do not go out and tell somebody about it right away, all right? Don't go tell somebody about what perhaps is stirring in you too soon. All right, you need to crock-pot it. You need to figure out if you're going to own it. You got to get some space between you and God to just see if, okay, am I going to own this thing? You got to let it season a bit. All right, and so we pray about it. And when we pray about it, let me tell you really clearly, praying about it, praying is not a substitute for doing. All right. One of the things that you will never hear me say, in fact, I can't tell you when I've ever said this phrase, I hear it all the time, I can't stand it, is when somebody is asked to do something. You'll never hear somebody ask me something, I'll go, let me pray about that. I never say that. Now, I do pray about it, but I will never say that phrase, because that phrase to me is a smokescreen. It's just a way for us to avoid what perhaps we need to do. All right, and so, and rarely do we get around to doing it. We say, I'm going to pray about it. We don't pray about it, and we definitely don't do it. Prayer is not about pausing to avoid something. Praying is about marinating and actually preparing to do it. All right, that's what prayer is about. It's good to pause, but Nehemiah is not like, gosh, I'm going to discern if I should do this. No, he's like, I want to figure out how I'm going to do this. I'm going to let it marinate. I'm going to see how I'm going to own this thing. Because the third thing is vision is about doing. Vision is about doing. Nehemiah goes on, says, in the month of Nisan, or Honda, or Toyota, I don't know if that's where they got the name or not. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, I took up the wine and gave it to the king. Now, I had not been sad in his presence. So Nehemiah had never really showed his emotion in the presence of the king before. And the king said to me, why is your face sad, seeing that you're not sick? This is nothing but sadness of heart, he said. Then I was very much afraid. So the king sees that his cupbearer, his guy, is not well. He says, Nehemiah, you don't look good. And this opens up the door for Nehemiah to actually give and ask to the king. Now, this is 4 months later, all right? And this is where Nehemiah starts doing. This is where he begins asking for resources to put around this thing God's put on his heart. Let's go on to verse 7. It says, and I said to the king, if it pleases the king, let letters be given to me to the governors of the province beyond the river, that they may let me pass through it until I come to Judah, and a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of my fortress of the temple, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall occupy. And the king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of God was on me. I love this right here. Love it. He says, the good hand of God was on me. He says, all of a sudden, I'm planning, I'm preparing, I'm gathering resources to go forward. I love this. He says, God is he's actually blessing me in this process. Let me tell you something. There are certain brands of spirituality that use phrases like, I'm going to pray about this. All right, and then we never do anything about it. There's certain brands of spirituality that say, well, if God is in it, you don't really need to do anything. If God's in it, it'll just happen. Or there's other brands of spirituality in our country that just say, man, if God wants it to happen, then it's going to just naturally happen. Yeah, you know how it happens? It happens through somebody who gets a vision and actually goes and does it, who actually goes and puts energy to it. All right? It doesn't happen by angels just like mysteriously coming down and like making things happen. No, it's somebody who has a vision and actually crockpots it and then begins to put resources around it and actually says, I'm going to lay my life down for this, whatever it is. Whether it's building a wall in Nehemiah's case, whether it's getting a college education, being the first one in your perhaps family of origin to get a college education, whether your vision is to start a business or to learn a second language so you can connect with a whole people group that perhaps are underserved and underseen in our communities today. Maybe it's building, a business or being a coach that builds people. And let me tell you, as you begin to do this, something's going to happen. You're going to experience headwinds, which is why the fourth thing about vision is critically important, which is that vision is enduring. Vision is enduring. See, when it comes to vision, you have to think of yourself and you have to say, okay, right now, here's where you and I are. When we think about whatever that thing is in front of us, whatever God may be stirring in us, saying, hey, here's what I want you to do, as big or small as it might be, we're right here. And the thing that he's calling us to, the thing that we want to move to is out there. So we're here, and you're going to have to, all these things are important. We have to see it. We have to feel it. All right, there's going to be a time where we say, okay, what am I going to begin to do around this thing? Those are all important, but the key thing is right now we're here, and the thing we're moving toward is out there. And there's something in the midst of here and there that stands between where I am now and where I'm going to go. And that thing is two words. It's time and it's difficulty. Time and difficulty. Meaning it's going to take time to get from here to there. It's going to be very, very difficult at times to get from here to there, even painful at times. This is why other people don't always make it, all right? But if you have vision and you're feeling it and you feel like, okay, this is something God's calling me to, whether it's something health related, educational related, something in the community that you just have a burden to bless the community with, all right, you will find a way to actually endure until it gets done. You'll keep pressing. And so the cool thing is in this process is that you might think, okay, the thing I'm supposed to do is this or that. I mean, whatever that vision is. But maybe in the midst of that, God actually has a vision for you. Maybe in the midst of you pursuing that, God actually grows you in the enduring process. Listen, I can't tell you. I wish I had time to tell you all the ways over the last year. As we've been working on kind of a vision for Crosspoint over the last year and some barriers and challenges and, okay, how do we create a strong, future runway for Crosspoint into the future and, all the emotion that led to that, all the moments with our leadership and the things we did and meetings and energy into, connecting with people and putting plans together and the enduring through that. That became a vision for me, but I'm telling you, in the midst of that, I realized God had a vision for me. God actually had a vision to grow my endurance in the midst of that challenge. And I wish I could give you examples of all the ways it's happened. You probably have times in your life where you look back and you go, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing this, but God was actually growing this in me. One of the things God's been growing in me is what it means to even trust deeper and follow more intently. See, very few people actually do difficult things anymore. And in our home, we have this phrase around our house that we use periodically. In fact, sometimes I'll go to my wife and I'll say, hey, Julie, why are we doing this? And she'll remind me. She's like, it's because we can do hard things. We can do hard things. And so we have this phrase, I can do hard things. All right, that's what we do. We actually, when things get difficult, we remind ourselves we can do hard things. This is why when my son's starter went out on his car and we weren't sure, we wanted to put the money or he had the money to put into it to fix it or if it was worth it, he came to me and he said, hey, Dad, you can fix this, right? And I'm like, I don't know if I can, but I love the fact, he's always been this way since he was 8 years old. He's like, Dad, you can fix this. He's still at 20, thinks I can fix everything. I love that. I love that he thinks that. I didn't know that I could do it. I didn't know that we could do it. I'm like, man, it was required taking about a quarter of the engine out and, the intake, all these different things off. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I've never done something like this before. I need to sit on this a bit. I was praying about it. I didn't tell him, hey, let me pray about it, because that means I'm just going to avoid it. I didn't tell him that. I said, let's sit on this a bit. I did some education, watch YouTube. I'm watching this thing. I'm going, man, I don't know if we can do this. All right. But as I prayed about it, it wasn't, okay, God, should I do this? It's like, God, give me a lead. Give me some confidence that we can actually accomplish this. and we dive in, and there's moments as we start, tearing the engine apart. We get stuck. In fact, at one point in the YouTube video we were following, the guy says, now this next step will take you an hour and a half. And I'm like, an hour and a half for one step? And our hands are bloody and hurting, and we'd never done this before. And I just kept saying, okay, I can do hard things. We can do hard things. And I love that we actually got to do that, and he actually got to be a part of that. But see, if you're going to be a person of vision, you have to embrace that I can do hard things, whatever it is. Now, you may not have your head under a hood, replacing a starter. You may not be carrying the weight or burden of an organization or a business or whatever, it might be. Those are just a few of my examples. But for us to endure at times, it's going to be hard. Nehemiah, here's what he says. He says, so I went to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. And then I arose in the night, and a few men with me, and I told no one what my God had put into my heart to do for Jerusalem. There was no animal with me, but the one on which I rode. So he doesn't tell anybody about this. All right, he doesn't tell anybody. You know why? Because he's crockpotting it. He's actually allowing his vision to marinate right here. It's too soon. If he tells anybody about this, they're gonna dash his dreams. Let me tell you something. You got to be really careful who you tell your dreams to. All right, who you tell your resolutions, your visions to. Again, there's nuances in these words: resolutions, dreams, goals. We're using those synonymously today, but you got to protect your vision. All right, because you can't let the wrong person speak into that. The only people you need speaking into that are people who are going to blow oxygen on those little embers that are just beginning to glow. He says, I went out by night to the valley gate, to the dragon spring, to the dung gate, and I inspected the walls of Jerusalem that were broken down and its gates that had been destroyed by fire. So finally he gets to actually see the walls. He'd seen them in his mind. He felt a burden for it. He raised resources for it, but now he finally gets to see it. Now we're gonna take a look at each of these 4 steps over the next 4 weeks. We're gonna continue to dig into this story and say, okay, what does it look like for us to bring our vision that God's putting on our hearts, our resolution, our whatever that goal is, into fruition this year? Whether that's being the first to go to college in your family of origin, whether that's having healthy kids, whether that's starting a business, or you have some idea to bless the community, whatever it might be, we're going to begin to extrapolate that out. But today, for the next couple minutes, I want to kind of lay the seed bed to allow us to experience and hear more from God as we dig into this over the next few weeks. All right, and so because what we all need in order to really get clear and be able to actually get leads on this, what we need to be hearing from God. And we need to get a sense that what we're feeling isn't just a feeling, but that actually, those are actually perhaps informed by the character of God. So I want to invite you to do something as we kick off this year. And this is good just for anybody. I mean, whether you are going to apply this to a goal or not. But I think this is something we should all engage in, and I want to invite you to do that. I want to invite you to join me in a 30-day verse of the day challenge. And what that means is for the next 30 days, I want to invite you to just spend every single morning in Scripture and getting a verse and thinking about what that means for you and allowing that to speak into God's character into your life. Now, one of the ways you can do this, and this isn't a plan, this is just something that you can say, okay, I want to do this. In fact, if you don't have the YouVersion app, this is a great place to start. This is the Bible on your phone, all right? And if you open the YouVersion app, you're going to see this little screen right here, and it's going to have a verse of the day. And then right under it, it's going to have a guided scripture. So, I want to invite you to join me over the next 30 days to every day listening to that verse of the day, reading it, and then listening to the 2-minute video. And then third, you just have to figure out a way to journal, whether it's on your phone or in a paper journal. Just write down, okay, what is God saying to me as I think about this verse right here. Now, this 30 days, I'm telling you, it'll make a difference. Now, you may have a different reading plan you've already started. You may be on a read the Bible in a year plan in your fuddy-duddy Bible. That's totally cool. You can do that. All right, no problem. You can read that in your paper Bible. I don't care what the plan is. It's just that most of us don't have a plan. So if you don't have a plan where you're actually hearing from God daily, I want to ask you if you'd consider joining this 30-day challenge. If so, I want you to mark it on your connection card. All right, we're not tallying these saying, hey, 18 or 50 people did this. This is more for you to say, hey, I'm going to commit to, for the next 30 days, getting in daily to Scripture and listening to this guided explanation of that verse, and then just saying, okay, God, what does this mean for my life? All right, and I'm telling you, when you do this, if you want to get someplace new, you got to do something different. And so this perhaps for some of us is where we're going to start hearing from God on a daily basis. Now, 2 other quick mentions before we wrap up. Every single year, we get to this time of year, and I have people ask me this question. In fact, I've already had it a couple times this year. Somebody says, hey, I want next year to be different. I want to go to new places spiritually. What can I do? Well, here's my question. Every time somebody says that, where are you connected in community, and where are you serving other people? And usually the response is like, oh, no, you didn't hear me right. I want to grow. I want to experience more of God. I want to experience more of his goodness in my life. Okay, back to the same 2 questions. Where are you connected in community with people who are heading in the same spiritual direction? And where are you serving? These are 2 of the biggest growth mechanisms. Small groups are starting here in 2 weekends. And so if you're not in a small group, this is a great time. Maybe this is a new trajectory to begin, a new drive to say, hey, I'm going to get with some people who are headed in the same direction, different places, all different places spiritually, but headed in the same direction. You can check out our small groups. If you need help, let us know on your connection card. And then secondly, join in a volunteer team. It's one of the greatest needs we have around here, and it's one of the greatest levers that God put into the church to actually grow us. When we say, okay, I'm going to be in a place where I'm going to not be about myself, but I'm going to serve other people. I'm going to show up. I'm going to teach kids. One of our greatest needs right now is volunteers in kids areas, Crosspoint Kids. I'm going to greet people. I'm going to serve coffee. I'm going to run tech in the back of the room. I'm going to do something that's not just beneficial for me. I'm going to get out of sitting in the seats for 65 minutes. I'm actually going to think about others and bless others. I'm telling you, it's one of the greatest ways God grows us. If you're looking to start a new trajectory and experience more of God, maybe join a team is one of your first ways to do that. There's a card in your weekly. You can fill this out. You can hold this into the service. We'll let you know what you can do with it when we get to that point. All right, so as we think about all these things, this past week, we've watched a lot of movies in our home. In fact, Julie and I are big movie fans, and I've discovered that I don't like all the movies. There's certain movies I really like. And I heard a conversation recently between a guy and a movie producer, and he was talking about the movies that really land with us. And he said, a lot of the ones that don't is because they have what's called slow danger. And slow danger is where you have a movie plot that begins to develop, and it's like, well, if you don't do something in 40 years, life is going to be really bad. Well, I'm telling you, I hate those movies. I'm like, I check out right at the beginning. I got to see fast danger. I got to see, when I'm watching a movie, I got to get to the place where there is an immediate danger. Hey, a bomb is about to drop, and we're going to wipe out half of the country. All right, that's real danger. That's not slow danger right there. Listen, same is true with our lives. If you're a person of vision, if you want to go after something, we got to move away from the slow danger thing. We got to get to the place where we believe, if I don't do this thing, like things are not going to be good. I actually may have some life robbed out of me right here, because it's dangerous to your heart if you don't do the thing God has put on your heart. It might be dangerous to your body if you keep doing the thing God is causing you to begin to feel like you need to make a move on if you don't make a move on that. Right? It may be dangerous to our community if you have an idea of blessing our community in some way, but you just sit on it and you don't do it, right? Because you are literally the hands and feet of Jesus. You're going to be at your best when you're spending time with God this year. And I just gave you 3 ways to begin to lay that framework as we then begin to say, okay, God, what is it you want me to do? Understand you're fearfully and wonderfully made. I mean, God put you together exactly the way that you are. He has a plan for you. I know some of us don't believe that. He has a plan for you. And you may be searching for this grand thing, and God may be wanting you to see the very thing right in front of you, right around you right now. And when you feel it, He wants you to get on it. That's what we're going to pick up next week. Let's go ahead and stand. I want to pray for us. God, thank you for this story. Thank you for Nehemiah, for these handles that we can grab and this experience that he had. And I just begin to shudder at the idea of what could happen if just a small percentage of us got a vision and went after it. And God, I just pray that happens. I pray that we would, whether it's a resolution, a goal, that there's something in our life that you might be moving us toward, that we would actually begin to feel some synergy around that, maybe even feel it deeper in our spirit. God, as we connect with you this week, that we'd get some clarity on that thing. And God, I pray that thing begins to happen. And I can't wait over the next year or two to hear stories where somebody might go, gosh, back at that first weekend of 2025, I was ready for something new, and God began to cultivate something in me. And so, God, I just pray that even as we get ready to walk out of here in a moment, that you would continue the work that you do, that you would break down any of the barriers that prevent us from experiencing more and more of you this year. God, we love you. We want to hear from you. And I just want to thank you in advance for hearing our prayers.
Those walls that we could sit and shake, they were like prisons that we couldn't escape. But he came and he died and he rose. Those walls are up. Remember those giants we called death and grave. They were like mountains that stood in our way. But he came and he died and he rose. Those giants of death. Oh, this is our God. This is who he is. He loves us. Oh, this is our God. This is what he does. He saves us. He bore the cross. That fear that took our breath away. Face so weak that we could barely pray. But he heard every word, every whisper. Now those altars in the wilderness tell the story of his faithfulness. Never once did he fail, and he never will. This is our God, this is who he is. He loves us.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Now, if you're looking for some new traction in your spiritual life as you kick off 2025, Curt gave us a couple things you can immediately do to jumpstart some new trajectories. And I want to circle around on 2 of those. First, if you are looking to be a part of a team or a place where you can make a difference in the lives of others in real and tangible ways, we would love to help you join a volunteer team here at Crosspoint. If you'll take a moment, fill out this form, this will help us help you to find a team and experience a new level of meaning and purpose in your life through being a blessing to others. If you're looking to make some new connections, or perhaps you felt like you're going through life alone and you're interested in connecting with others that are on a similar journey, we would love to help you find a small group community to connect with. We think life is just better when we do it together. Small groups are a place where you can grow with other people and grow with God. So scan this QR code, you can take a look at some of our available groups, or let us know on your connection card and we'll help you find a small group community to connect with. All right, a big shout out to those of you who are givers here at Crosspoint. I want to say thank you for your generosity through the Joy Box. And if you're not a giver but would like to become one, this is another way you can be a difference maker. You could simply donate at this QR code and know that your gifts fuel so much goodness coming out of this place. Last, if you would like someone to pray with you today, we'd love to do that. You can text the keyword "need prayer" to this number, 317-834-7373, and our prayer team will be in touch with you. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time for part 2 of #2025 Goals.
Well, this is our God. This is who he is.